Hey everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and we are going to continue our review series on the Ashes of Outland expansion, coming out very soon, and we are going to be looking at Druid cards today. Again, our review covers both Standard and Wild, so you can get a good idea of what cards I feel will be strong or weak in either format. And again, it's a 5-star rating system, with 5 stars being like a god tier, unbelievably good card that'll be in pretty much every deck conceivable, and 1 star being utter garbage that will likely just be a bad pick in Arena. So, let's take a look at the Druid cards. We have first Bog Bhima, a 3-mana Druid spell. Deal 3 damage to a minion. If you have 7 mana crystals, it costs 0. So 3 mana, deal 3, really sucks. It's very inefficient. It's not good. Obviously, it's really good for 0 mana. I feel that if you want to run this card, you really don't want to pay 3 mana for it. It's going to be sitting in your hand, and what are you going to be playing in it? Probably a Kelthus Druid deck, an Auctioneer deck, Quest Druid, something like that. I just don't think it'll make the cut. Those decks are still relatively tight. They're not losing a ton, and I don't know if it makes the cut. Seems weak, even in Standard. So in Standard, I'll give it a 2. I think it's fringe at best, and on Wild, you're never playing this card. It's a 1. Just don't put this in your Wild deck. Next, we have Overgrowth, a 4-mana Druid spell. Mana Ramp is back. You get to gain 2 empty mana crystals, and I asked a dev on Twitter what happens when you cast it on 10, and he said that you will get 1 excess mana, not 2. So, 2 mana crystals. It's Wild Growth, except for 1 mana more, or the pre-nerf version, 2 mana more. Really good card. Really good. And Biggin Druid, I think, will love this card in Standard. You're already playing in Biggin. You're playing Breath of Dreams. You play a Biggin into Breath of Dreams into Overgrowth. I don't see how you lose. It's crazy, and you can just run this in any deck that wants to ramp. And in Wild as well, there's some really strong implications for this. There's not a lot of good turn 4 plays to make in Druid, in Jade Druid right now. You have Summons, you have Paths, and that's it. You can play Overgrowth, ramp up into Malfurion, you ramp up into Plague, Overflow, very strong. Standard, Wild, this card is going to see play. I think it's a 4-star card in both formats. Super strong. I'm very excited to try it out. I love ramping. Maybe I can even play some big boys again, so really cool. Happy to see this card. Then we have Glowfly Swarm, a 5-mana spell for Druid. Summons a 2/2 Glowfly for each spell in your hand. They're 2/2 beasts. Just don't see the card doing much. In Standard, there's not enough spell support, like buffs, that really you can really take advantage of this. You have like Soul to Force, and you have that twin spell that can buff. But other than that, it's pretty weak. And it's just susceptible to a lot of stuff. I mean, it can get even flicked by Rogue. I just don't think it's quite good enough, not strong enough. And in Wild, there's a lot more buffs. But the thing is, there's just better stuff to do in Wild. It's just not really worth the card slot in Standard or Wild. I'm going to give it a 2 in Standard, because it's okay, but not great. And in Wild, there's just so much better stuff to do. You'd probably just play Living Mana instead if you were to do this. So I'll give it a 1 in Wild. Then we have Ironbark, another Druid spell. A lot of spells, and you'll note that's kind of the theme of the Druid set here. Ironbark, give a minion +1/+3 in taunt. If you have 7 mana crystals, it costs 0. So 2 mana, gain 4 stats, including 3 health and taunt. That's good. That's not bad. And then you make it cost 0. That's really good. So any deck that wants to cycle with an Auctioneer or cheat mana like a Kelthus is going to love this card. Any deck that wants to, like, defend yourself with, it's even good with Rising Winds. You can taunt up a 3/2 and defend yourself like in Quest Druid. It's just a super solid card. It's good to see play in Standard, 100%, and it may be in multiple decks, so I'm going to give it a 4 there. In Wild, I think you just have enough cheap spells that you don't need this, but it has potential. I'm going to give it a 2 for Wild, but it could sneak into some Miracle-type decks. It's quite possible, but I'm still going to give it a 2. Then we have Germination, a 4-mana spell. Summon a copy of a friendly minion, give the copy taunt. It's Faceless Manipulator with taunt. It costs 1 less. It's not going to eat a Dream Petal Florist mana cheat hit in Wild, and it's not going to hit in a Prison Satire hit in Standard. This card is a combo enabler. Is it good enough? In Wild, absolutely not. You already have Aviana Kun. You have all these better ways of doing things. It's not. But in Standard, You don't have a lot of great ways of copying, and you can do stuff with Imprisoned Santa and Malagos and really go off with this. I think it has potential to make a Melee Druid deck see some play. So I'm going to give it a 3 in Standard, but in Wild, there's just so much better stuff to do. Combo-wise, you have to be very fast. And if you're using Germination to set up your combo in Wild, it's not happening. So I'll give it a 1 there. Now we have a new Druid Legendary, Ysel Windsinger. Kind of reminiscent of old Aviana. It's a 9 mana 5/5. Your spells cost 1 rather than your minions cost 1. I don't know what you're doing with this card in either format. You already have Kel'Thas, Sunstrider, that can make your spells cost 0 on turn 6. Like, that's insane, right? Well, this makes your spells cost 1, and, well, I mean, that's potentially strong if you cheat it out and then you have, you know, UI and overflow and stuff, but, like, it's very slow. There's not a ton of great ways to cheat it out, and I just don't see it. I feel like I'm missing something on this card. Kel'Thas Sunstrider is just insane compared to this, so I don't know. In Standard, Wild, I'm giving it a 1 across the board. I just don't see it. The card's kind of cool, but yeah, I don't see where it fits in anywhere. Next, we have a 7 mana 7/7 Beast Marsh Hydra. It has Rush, and after this attacks, add a random 8-cost minion to your hand. So if it actually lives to attack twice, you get 2 8-cost minions. That's insane value. It curves very well. It's proactive, but it's usually not good enough. In Wild, unplayable. I'm going to flat out say it. You're never playing this card. It's a 1 there. Don't even think about it. Standard, where the power level's a lot lower, it's still slow. You still have Oasis Surger and things like that. This is a really, really good arena card, but Standard, it's not going to make the cut. So in Standard, it's a 2, and like I said, in Wild, it's a 1-star card. Next, we have Fungal Fortunes, 2 mana spell, and this is kind of a theme, you know? Everything's been spells. Well, draw 3 cards. And if you draw any minions, you discard them. So it's like Book of Specters for Druid, but instead of drawing minions, you want to draw spells. How good is that? I don't see it in Standard. There's not enough spell support. Yes, there's some powerful spells here in this set and pre-existing, but not enough to make a deck really function that you're going to really rely on this, I believe, because your minions are very important. Especially one of the most important strong decks in Standard, and will continue to be, is Quest Druid, and a lot of its strength relies on its minions, like Oasis Surger, Ysera, Cenarius, things like that. So I don't see it as a meta card quite yet in Standard, so I'm going to give it a 2, but it will probably see play down the line. In Wild, however, you got decks like Miracle Druid, Jade Druid. A lot of these Druid decks run very little amount of minions, and a lot of them are not impactful. Yes, you have your Kel'Thas Sunstrider and like Ysera or King Pharos and Jade Druid, but outside of that, you don't care about your minions. And even then, you can rip them. It's fine. So I'm curious to see. Drawing 3 cards is very powerful, and it could very well see play. I think this is a much better shot of being a wild card. So I'm going to give it a 3. I see the potential in Wild, especially with how spell heavy the decks currently are there. So a 3 in Wild and a 2 in Standard. Then we have the new Prime Legendary Druid minion, Archspore Mishfin. 3 mana 3/4 taunt. That's very good. And then it will also shuffle the Mishfin Prime into your deck, which is a 10 mana 9/9 with taunt. And then you get to choose, well, you summon a 9/9 giant with it, and then you get to choose whether that giant has taunt or it has rush, or if you have your quest activated or FanDuel on the board, you get both. It's an insane card in Standard. 100%. Quest Druid, you're auto-running this. You're already losing cards like War Druid Lodi, which is a really good card. This fits that slot. Doesn't fit the same purpose, but it's good. It's a 3 mana 3/4 that can keep you alive, and it can create an insane late-game value bomb. Super crazy card, and you don't even need to run this in Quest Druid. You can run this in Big Druid. It's still really good. Like, the reward is insane, the curve play is good. It's gonna see play in pretty much every Druid deck in Standard, outside of maybe a token Druid deck. I'm giving it a 5 stars in Standard. This card is nuts. In Wild, you don't want to Oaken Summon this, I don't think. And outside of that, you don't really want to spend the 10 mana, even though it's an 18/18 in Wild. Shit's so broken there, you don't really want to be doing that. I'm going to give it a 2 in Wild. It could fit in, because maybe it's not the worst thing to Oaken Summons, and maybe the 10 drop's worth it, but it's close. So I'm going to give it a 2, but I could be wrong on this one. Could see Wild play. Lastly, we have Imprisoned Satyr, or Satyr. I can never pronounce this correctly according to chat. And it's a 3/3 demon, dormant for 2 turns. When it awakens, it will give a random minion in your hand -5 mana. It will cost 5 less to play. So you cheat out a Malagos, something like that. This is kind of a combo enabler. You can play 2 of them, so you could potentially discount something by 10. Say you only run Malagos, and then you make Malagos cost 0, you Germination it, and then you kill your opponent. Or Germination, Germination. You have 3 Malagoses, Moonfire, Moonfire, you kill anything that doesn't have armor. Potentially a cool combo card, but probably too slow and clunky. But in Standard, it has a shot. I'll give it a 3, just for that fringe of Malagos deck you might be able to play. But then you can't play any other minions, so it can be complicated. And it can hit itself, but the Dormant can allow you to set that up a little bit. So I'll give it a 3 in Standard. In Wild, it's just hot garbage. You're never playing this ever, ever, ever in Wild. There's so much better stuff to do. So I'll give it a 1. And that wraps up the Druid card review. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. We'll hit you up with the next part tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody, and stay salty, my friends.